Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my SEC Coach Power Rankings based off of this past year. This is where I'm going to be giving you guys my full season analysis of these coaches and ranking them from 14 all the way to the best, of course, and number one. That is what we're up to in today's video. If you guys haven't already, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, turn that bell on. Of course, we do our best to try and post on the channel every single day. Really quickly, want to say thank you for yesterday, or I believe Monday's video. It was the NBA playoff predictions. It got a lot of views. It's at 1,000 views right now and has about like 20 or so comments, which is great to see. I love growing with you guys, and I cannot wait for what else is to come within the Sports Lovers YouTube channel as well. So this is where I'm going to be giving you my SEC basketball coaching power rankings. Let's go ahead and hop into it for the 2023-2024 season. Alright everybody, here we are, the tier list itself. Obviously, you guys know the drill. We drag, we drop, and we talk as well. So, going off from 14 to number 1, that's how we're going to be doing this in our tier list rankings. We have our first coach, of course, Mark Boynton. I believe it is this guy right here. I'm going to give him 14. Obviously, he's not the greatest coach. He didn't really have a whole lot to work with. But that being said, Vanderbilt was dead last, I believe, in the Southeastern Conference. So that is my reasoning behind giving Mark Boynton this record as well. Missouri may have lost to them, yes, but I believe Vanderbilt were either last or second to last in their respect in this conference. So with that said, that is what is going on for, obviously, Vanderbilt. Moving on, though, is Dennis Gates, the men's basketball coach for the Missouri Tigers. Now, he, of course, is going to be number 13th ranked in the SEC, right? I mean, obviously, again, we saw what he did with Missouri basketball this year. We saw what they couldn't do at times a lot throughout this year. They got some stuff they got to work on. So that is what Dennis Gates gets for obviously being at number 13. Now, moving on to number 12 is an interesting one. It is Mike White with the University of Georgia. Now, I believe Georgia started off the season very, very good, if I'm not mistaken. They were kind of like Ole Miss, where they kind of fell off, of course, but they started out the year very good. I believe they won pretty much all of their non-conference games, if I'm not mistaken, but when it came time for conference play, they just couldn't do anything, so that is why they're at number 12, one of the worst records in the SEC. That's where they are right now for number 12 as well. Moving on, though, to number 11, and this is an interesting one because I really like this guy. It is Eric Musselman out of Arkansas. I didn't want to put him this low because I like his play style. I like what he's going to do. Obviously, him leaving for the USC job, I believe it's either USC or Stanford, is going to hurt this program. But Eric Musselman did not have a great year. Obviously, coming off those 2 Elite 8 appearances, a Sweet 16 and an Elite 8 appearance, that's pretty crazy for that whole program, really, to turn that ship around that quick. But right now, he just gets the 11 for how he did within the SEC this year as well. Moving on, though, we have Matt McCann of LSU. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like this pick, and I can see why, right? LSU was definitely not one of the bad teams in the SEC this year, but there were just a lot of teams better than them as well. So with that said, that is where I'm going to put this LSU Tigers men's basketball team. Now, with that being said, this group specifically has a lot of growing to do, and I believe this coach can definitely do it if they stick with him long term. So with that being said, that is where, of course, Matt McCann is going for this LSU Tigers team. Now, moving on is another rival of LSU, and that, of course, is going to be Buzz Williams of Texas A&M. Now, with that being said, A&M didn't have a bad year either, but again, it's just part of the SEC. It's a very big and deep conference to play in, where you have to have a bunch of teams really good in order to be an elite conference, and A&M was just not one of those teams this year. We saw what they did last year, but they cannot mimic that throughout the regular season, and that's why they get a 9 here for their head coach, Buzz Williams as well. Now, moving on to another one, and this one's going to be kind of controversial, but it is going to be the Ole Miss Rebels head coach, Chris Beard. Obviously, he is a great he's a great coach. Obviously, excuse me for a second here as we get this lined up. He coaching at and I didn't put him up here, but coaching this Ole Miss team to what it was pretty much a very good non-conference schedule. And then conference play, they didn't do all that great, but they did win a few games, which was very good to see. So that's why he gets an 8. Definitely not one of the worst coaches in the league, but again, Ole Miss just kind of didn't do so well in conference play. So that is why they get their coach gets an 8, excuse me. Now, moving on to our number 7, that is Chris Jans out of Mississippi State. Now, give me just a second here just to look up what he looks like, because I don't know a lot what he looks like. So that's Chris Jans, and then obviously we're going to go him right there. So he gets a 7, obviously. There's really not a whole lot for me to say. They beat Auburn a lot in the regular season. They made it to the NCAA tournament for another time in their program history. So congratulations to them, and that is why he gets a 7. But this is where it gets very, very interesting. At number 6, I do have Lamonte Paris out of South Carolina. Now, I thought South Carolina was highly overrated, and they proved that to me in the NCAA tournament, which is why, again, you guys have to trust the process for South Carolina. They had a really good team this year, but can they mimic that throughout the season of next year and years to come as well is going to be my question for Lamont Paris of the South Carolina's team. Moving on, you've got number 5, and obviously it's going to be John Calipari. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be saying, why isn't Todd Golden at number 5 when Calipari had a better record? I will explain that in a second. But John Calipari, obviously, being one of the great coaches in men's college basketball, winning a national championship in 2012, I believe, is great in and of itself. But this past season, he did not fulfill that Kentucky fan base at all. He crapped the bed in the SEC tournament. We'll just call it what it is. He did the same thing in the NCAA tournament like he does every year. He's like the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL, where they get to the playoffs and you just keep losing all of these very big games. So that is why John Calipari is at number 5. He had a great regular season record, and I honestly think Kentucky was kind of overrated, whereas they were placed throughout this regular season. I think people just said, hey, it's Kentucky, let's throw them in there. They did have their ups, they had their downs this year, but ultimately could not get the job done in the NCAA tournament. Now, moving on to another coach, and what I think is going to be one of the more shocking ones of this tier list ranking, that is Todd Golden out of Florida, bringing them to their SEC championship game, making the NCAA tournament is fantastic for them. It's a great jump start to this Florida Gators program, this basketball program. They had a really solid conference play record. He was one of the better coaches. He beat Kentucky at home, which is why I have him right there with John Calipari. Now, they almost beat him on the road as well. So that in and of itself just shows you how talented this Florida Gators team. They beat Auburn and Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers. They beat Alabama. They almost knocked off Tennessee. They had some upset wins this year, and that's why they get the number 4 spot in my head coaching rankings for Todd Golden out of the Florida Gators. Now, moving on to number 3, that of course is going to be Bruce Pearl out of Auburn. Now, you may say, why is Bruce Pearl obviously ahead of Todd Golden if he lost to them in the regular season? We cannot deny the fact that we just won the SEC championship, guys, right? We can also not deny the fact that we just lost to Yale in the NCAA tournament. Now, I've shared my reactions to that one. We're not going to get into that too deep, but this Auburn team was really good and well coached for this program. Again, Holloway, Denver Jones, and obviously Trey Donaldson all split minutes pretty evenly throughout, and I think that's kind of why they entered the portal. But again, Bruce Pearl does a phenomenal job with this program this year, and I cannot wait for years to come with the Auburn Tigers. Now, moving on to number 2, and we'll just do 2 and 1 in the same category. Number 2 is Rick Barnes, and then of course number 1, I hate to say it, but it is the Alabama Crimson Tide and Nate Oates. So, really quickly, I'll give you the rundown of these coaches. Rick Barnes, obviously, is a phenomenal coach, outright regular season champion of the SEC tournament. of the SEC regular season. Did not do so well in the SEC tournament, but got them to an Elite 8 appearance. So that's why I have them at number 2. And then Nate Oates getting this Alabama team to a Final Four for the first time in its program history. That's my reasoning for number 1. So just to kind of recap the list, that is all for me and my SEC head coaching rankings. Anyway, that is going to be where I'm going to cut it for this video as well. Like I said yesterday, tomorrow you're going to get my NFL top 10 mock draft. Just the first 10 picks. I'll talk Panthers, I'll talk Cowboys, and I'll talk Saints in that video as well extra. But the top 10 is where it's going to be for the NFL draft predictions for tomorrow. A week from the draft starts tomorrow. So with that being said, I'm going to hop off, get this edited so you guys can watch it on time as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Once again, thank you for the love on yesterday's video, about 1,000 views and counting so far from that video. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.